Hey everybody, welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Endgame. That's right, not just football anymore. Fantasy Endgame community. I'm Pierre, here to help you win at Fantasy Baseball. Hopefully you've been with us throughout the draft season, but drafts are over. MLB season is underway finally. We're about a week in, and it's time to look at the waiver wire. That's right, it's never too early to get help. Look, maybe you got somebody who's already on the shelf early, injured, or someone who's struggling, or you just need some help looking for a boost. I'm gonna help you out with some hitters that can be on your team right now if you go pick them up, depending on your league, of course, your format. But these are some guys who are under 50% rostered across Yahoo leagues. I'm gonna talk about some players that could help you right now on the waiver wire. All right, so you know the first name we have to talk about is a player who's been in the news pretty much every day, Steven Kwan. Yes, it's time to have a hard conversation. I had to do it. All right, so you might see he was in the news today because he didn't get a hit and he actually struck out. And why is that news? Because he had been doing everything but. It was the first time he swung and missed all season. Granted, it's only been a few games, but still, it was an impressive streak that he had. He reached 18 times to get on base in his first 5 games. He actually set the modern era record. That's right, got on base 18 times in 5 games. He lowered his average after going over 4 today, lowered his average to 526. That's correct. Now, obviously that's not going to last, but here's the thing. This is a guy who's hit well over 300 throughout his minor league career and back in Oregon State at college. He's always known for exactly what he's doing. High contact rate, great batting average, and almost never striking out. Now, the difference between a guy like him and fellow former teammate Nick Madrigal, who was a much higher draft pick, is the fact that Kwan actually has a little bit of power. Not that he's flexing his muscles any time recently. He's not going deep yet, but he could get to double-digit home runs. He actually has pretty good speed, so you could see him maybe get double-digit steals too. So for a guy who, if nothing else, is valuable because of the batting average, looks so hard to find guys who even hit 300 these days. There were only 25 qualified players last year who got above that mark, so it's just worth it to grab him because of his average. If you're in a roto league, in a points league, you definitely want him because he will walk a lot and get on base too, but he does have at least some upside in terms of speed and a little bit of power. So yeah, Steven Kwan, it's almost hard to believe he's only 80% rostered right now given how much he's been in the news. He's still available in a lot of leagues. Yes, it is worth it to go get him. All right, let's talk about another former college standout, and this is a former star who was the number 3 overall pick of the MLB draft a couple of years ago, and that's Andrew Vaughn of the Chicago White Sox. Kind of disappointing rookie campaign. He really didn't do a lot, especially in terms of fantasy last year, but this is a new year. Obviously, he got a little bit of experience under his belt. This is a guy who we know has a very high hit tool, kind of like Kwan, but he definitely has more power. He's a corner infielder. Been playing DH basically for the most part this year. I think that's where he'll stick because they got Jose Abreu obviously at first base, and Vaughn isn't needed in the outfield. Here's the thing, Vaughn has that hit tool that you want, plus the 20-plus homer upside. He's already gone deep twice, including once on opening day, and again just the other day. With AJ Pollock now on the injured list, that basically clears the path for him to play every day. That was the really only concern with Vaughn. I was never concerned about him personally in terms of his upside and would he improve. We knew he had the potential to be a breakout this year. He's a guy I identified in one of my draft videos much earlier. But the thing with Vaughn is, would he have that playing time? Because Chicago, that White Sox lineup is just stacked. I think he's found it. He's probably going to be the regular DH there, and if he sticks in the lineup, this is a guy who really should be in everyday lineups, and yet only 42% rostered. So if you have room for Vaughn, who does qualify at first base, corner, infield, go ahead and grab him. So it's early in the season. You might not have a lot of holes in your roster. You might not be too worried about the standings yet, but here's an area you could always use help, and that is stolen bases, just because there's really not that much out there. So few players you can count on for steals, and most of them are drafted early. So where can you find steals on the waivers already? How about Jorge Mateo from Baltimore? Turns out he's going to be the everyday shortstop, at least for the time being, in Baltimore. This is a guy who was a former prospect who didn't quite pan out in Oakland, was moved to San Diego, didn't do well in his brief stint there, and so now he lands in Baltimore, which is a good thing because he's going to have the chance to hold down an everyday job. Look, it's not the best team, not the best lineup, but That's a good thing for him because, again, just like we saw with Jonathan Villar a couple years ago, he's going to have the green light to run. He's got elite speed. I'm talking 99th percentile sprint speed. And he qualifies at second base, shortstop, and outfield. You can plug him in to a middle infield spot, move him to the outfield if you need to. That always helps. So he's not a guy you necessarily depend on as a starter. Look, he does have some pop. He could get you some power, but the counting stats really aren't going to necessarily be there where you may want to start him every day because it's Baltimore. But again, just for the speed alone, you know he's going to help there. So I recommend grabbing Mateo. He's a great plug-and-play player, and in good matchups, maybe grab you a couple of steals. Another place where fantasy baseball players always need help is catcher, because there's just so few you can depend on. So how about a guy who, well, I'm going to recommend not based on what he's done so far this year, but his potential and his opportunity. That is Alejandro Kirk. We know that he's a high prospect in the Toronto system. We've seen Toronto has done a decent job developing young prospects lately, you could say. So with Kirk, he's got the hit tool. We know he's got the bat. He's got 20+ homer upside as well. But the thing is, defense, maybe not his main thing. They have a bunch of turnover there at catcher lately. We know some trades have been made. But now Danny Jansen, who's their main backstop, is on the IL. So Kirk had been in there at DH for the most part because they want to get his bat in the lineup, which is a good sign. And now he's get to be the catcher, retain the catcher eligibility throughout next year, hopefully. But he's going to be in the lineup. He's got a lot of upside, especially in that Toronto lineup. You know, the best in baseball last year. So even though he's off to kind of a slow start, I think that if you need help at catcher, especially if you're in a 2-catcher league, he is a guy worth taking a gamble on. Just being in that lineup alone, he's probably going to get a lot of RBI opportunities. And then I have to talk about Jeremy Pena of the Houston Astros. So obviously Carlos Correa left in free agency, signed that massive deal with Minnesota. Who was their replacement? It wasn't Trevor Story. It wasn't another free agent. It was their in-house prospect, Jeremy Pena. And you know what? He may not be the next Carlos Correa, but what if he is? All right. Look, so far, I'm not going to go that far with him, but I will say he is somebody who you should pay attention to in fantasy. He's got some pop. He's hitting in a potent lineup. Yes, he's hitting 8th near the bottom of the lineup, but still, that order will turn over pretty quickly. I think he's got a good chance to produce numbers that will keep you satisfied at the middle infield spot. He's somebody who is kind of a dark horse candidate for Rookie of the Year in the National League. So Jeremy Pena is still widely available. I suggest picking him up now, and he's somebody who could surprise you. Last but not least, gotta throw a Miami player in there. Let's talk about Jesus Sanchez, somebody interesting enough, had a lot of helium early in draft season. People thought, young, potential breakout star, power hitter, got the tools. And then they signed Avisail Garcia to hold down an outfield spot. And then they signed Jorge Soler. And then a lot of people just kind of realized, well, Marlins don't usually produce a great offense, which is true. But here's the thing. Sanchez is still a talented player who's got all the tools necessary. He's still hitting in the heart of that order, which, you know what, doesn't have to be the best in baseball. A lot of times, fantasy value is had on mediocre to bad teams. So not the best ballpark, I'll grant you that, but Sanchez is the type of guy who doesn't necessarily need those barely out of there home runs. He's got power to spare. Already hit 2 home runs the other day. This is somebody who is only 20% rostered. He'll grab you a few steals too. Don't forget that Miami is always, in the Don Mattingly era, always among the top 5 teams in stolen base attempts per game. So this is a player who could get you help across multiple categories. So not going to say he could be a league winner per se, but the fact that he could be your 4th, 5th outfielder and he's sitting there on waivers, absolutely worth a pickup. All right, that's your week 1 look at the waiver wire for hitters. We'll do this also for pitchers, and we'll do this each and every week going forward through the season because, of course, our end game is to help you win at fantasy baseball. All right, thanks for watching.